Why are so many religious people obnoxious? Is one of the common questions I hear time and again. No wonder that religion gets such a bad rap. And doesn't it seem bizarre? Shouldn't religion cause a person to be more refined, more sensitive, kinder, gentler? And yet we find, obviously nobody is perfect, but we find people who, even in the name of religion, do things and behave in ways that are quite disturbing. And this is a critical issue that we need to address, because on one hand, religion is very much part of our lives, even till this very day, throughout history. And yet, there's this love-hate relationship. And many people don't trust religion and don't trust religious people. Some people talk about their religious trauma. So please join me in this very important discussion. Religious hypocrisy. When religion hides your flaws, and how to finally heal. Hi, this is Simon Jacobson, and we'll be discussing religious hypocrisy. When religion hides your flaws, and how to finally heal. This program is dedicated by Robert Behrens in loving memory of Gary Behrens. One of the most common questions I hear time and again, why are religious people so obnoxious? Now, of course, we all understand blanket statements like that are not healthy because they're stereotypical. And just to say a sweeping statement that all religious people are obnoxious, but the fact is you do find people that way. And there are people that are not religious people that are obnoxious too. But there's something that disturbs us when it's coming from a religious place. Because religion should be expecting and demanding more refinement, a more sensitive person, kinder, gentler. So when you see a religious person behaving in a way that's not appropriate, obviously nobody's perfect, but it disturbs, it rattles us, it's jarring. The dissonance is very deep. And indeed, it's a very critical issue to address because religion in our time has that love-hate element to it. Obviously, it plays a critical role in so many people's lives, and you can't ignore it. Even though some people in the Enlightenment thought there would be no more religion today, but it's still there and it's dominant and prominent in so many parts of the world. I mean, we even look at the religious violence in the name of religion. So no wonder religion gets such a bad rap. On the other hand, religion has brought some of the most beautiful things to life. The values, faith, the commitment, tradition, family. So let's address this issue head on. Now, there's no question that anybody can be a hypocrite. Whether you call yourself a religious person or not, it's part of the human condition. Hypocrisy. Which means what? That people put on a show. I'm not talking about the inconsistencies that we all have. That's not necessarily hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is where you're putting on a show and you're anything but a person of faith or religion. And maybe sometimes it takes some digging to uncover that and discover that. But obviously, that is something extremely disturbing. That's a con artist. But yet you also find people that are religious people, and sincerely so, and yet it doesn't affect their personal behavior. There's some type of dissonance. They can be very committed to the rituals, very dogmatic, but, as I said, obnoxious. Is that really a religious person? It's a very good question. So when you look into the sources, you have the concept of what they call in Hebrew, a novel b'reshus haTorah. It means a despicable person using the Torah, using religion to justify it. Either because they're knowledgeable and they know how to split hairs or find loopholes. But at the end of the day, they're using faith and religion to justify their own selfish behavior. So do we call a person like that a person of faith, religion? We have also the concept of the thief before he goes out to steal. He prays to God to succeed. Now God told him don't steal. It's antithetical to anything that faith dictates. And you're praying to God to steal? Isn't that tremendous inconsistency, to put it mildly? And yet, we all have elements of that, where we have a faith in something, we believe in it, but for whatever reason it hasn't fully penetrated, it hasn't fully permeated your life, and hence inconsistencies. So obviously no one size fits all. There are many different levels from one extreme to the next. You could have a complete con artist, you could have a partial inconsistent, you could be someone that has mistakes. But the big question is this: what does religion expect of us? Obviously, perfection is not something anyone can ever achieve. But like we talk about trust, trust is not built on perfection, it's built on accountability, that you're accountable. And even if you make a mistake, you acknowledge it. You don't try to cover it up. You don't live a false life. You say, I made my mistake. In other words, true faith, true religion has to go hand in hand with honesty, sincerity. That is even more important than perfection. What we call emes. So let's put it this way. I think this is a good way to frame it. What does it mean to be a healthy person? And how does religion play into that? Someone who grew up in the religious community, and I know its strengths and weaknesses, and I've seen it on all different angles, intimately, I've come away with understanding that we have to think of it in terms of health. If a person is an unhealthy person, a dysfunctional person, I don't mean unhealthy now clinically or something not due to our choices. I mean something, an anomaly, an aberration, that yes, it may be a result of your upbringing or being exposed to bad influences, but I'm not talking about mental illness right now, or any other thing that is connected to something clinical. An unhealthy person, a dysfunctional person, they happen to grow up in a religious community, and they happen to behave in a religious manner. So how does the religion play into it? The religion also becomes dysfunctional. Because if you're an abusive person, you're condescending, you're hurtful, you're violent, you're angry, just because you're religious doesn't mean that your anger is justified. Your anger is just now in the form of a religious person being angry. So is that true religion? Shouldn't religion expect that you be a less angry person, that you work on it? Again, we're not talking about perfection. And here is where the real dissonance takes place, where we say, you know what, at least I'm committed to my religion, to my traditions. The fact that I'm an angry person, I'm an abusive person, a hurtful person, two separate things. No. Because ultimately religion is not an end in itself. That's why you find in Judaism the concept that before we accept the laws, the commandments, the mitzvot, we have to accept God. God's sovereignty, God's authority. Meaning, first thing, you have to be accountable. If a person is committed to a law, but they're not committed to the lawgiver, there's something fundamentally missing. Or to put it in other terms, of one of the Hasidic Rebbes, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, put it this way. He said, loving God is one with loving another human being. Because if you love God, you love what God loves. He loves his children. If you love God but you don't love people, you're basically not loving what God loves. So you're not loving God. It's like saying to a father or mother, I love you, but I don't love your children. No, you love me, you have to love my children. Or to put it in the words of Hillel, that the entire Torah, standing on one foot, he said, is don't do unto others that you don't want done to you. Everything in the Torah, we're talking about even the laws between man and God, even prayer, Shabbat, things that don't seem to be connected to charity or to kindness, between you and God. Because the entire Torah is about refining the spirit, controlling matter, meaning your soul is dominating over your body, not your body over your soul. The selflessness of your soul is the driving force of your life. Again, not talking about perfection, but that's what you aspire to. So all of the Torah is about that. That if you get closer to God, that means you're getting closer to being a healthier person, to be a more refined person, to be a more sensitive person. And if you don't see that, then there's something fundamentally wrong. Either you can say that person's not religious. They're going through motions. You could also teach a monkey to put on tefillin or to do a mitzvah. Robotically, mechanically, mechanical Judaism, mechanical religion. So it's more than just mechanics. Not to say the mechanics are not important, but it's mechanics with a spirit within it. So it's not an end in itself, it's about doing something which makes you a less obnoxious, a less egotistic, a less arrogant person. Or in the positive terms, a more refined person, a more sensitive person. And when there's such dissonance that a person so-called looks religious, or acts religious, or behaves that way, but you don't see it in their personality at all, there's something seriously missing. And that's what Hillel said. The entire Torah is don't do unto others you don't want done to you. And if you are, you're missing the boat. That's why you'll find people who may not be so devout or pious, but they're very kind to others. Now, of course, if they did mitzvahs, it would be more so, because that's the whole point of a mitzvah, connecting you to a higher state of consciousness. And vice versa, you could find someone going through the robotics, and you don't see that sensitivity. So now let's talk about humans and human flaws. We all have flaws. Some of them are innate, some of them are inherited, some from nurture, some through nature. We can be born with a certain genetic predisposition that runs in the family, or things we pick up from family, parental or family attitudes, from social attitudes, from friends, from school, from our culture. The question is, what happens with that? Are we just stuck? A leopard cannot change its spots and a tiger its stripes? No. What is expected of us, because we were created in the divine image and you have a soul, you're expected that you're able to discipline yourself. First of all, to tame some of your harsher edges. And furthermore, to harness them and even transform them to some extent. That's what's expected. That's really the demand. So God says, I put you in this world. You're a human being. You have your flaws. Now work on them. Refine them. Become a better person. That's the expectation. And every part of the religion, every part of the faith, every tradition, every ritual, every custom is all about, every mitzvah is all about helping you refine that part of yourself. At times, do we go into automatic pilot? Yes. But think of a marriage, a relationship. If it's all built on automatic pilot, it's not going to go very far. So love means you work on it. You work on being a better person, a kinder person. More gratitude, more humility. At times, we all will fall, we'll all make our mistakes. And then you pick yourself up, you're accountable, and you continue. But you don't just say, that's who I am. Yes, at times you go into automatic pilot because you still will say I love you, you'll say thank you, even if you're not always in the mood. But the entire relationship is built on growth. It's built on an ongoing, perpetual commitment. It's a work in progress. And the same thing with our relationship with God, and the same thing with our relationship with all people. That's what true religion is. Okay. But then you have a scenario where not only are you not repairing your flaws, you're not working on them, you're actually justifying them. Saying, at least I'm a religious person. I'm praying. If you're kosher, we're talking about in Judaism, you're eating kosher, you're keeping the Shabbat, or whatever religion is that you're following, but it has nothing to do with your behavior. You're the same angry, insensitive, arrogant, or whatever other vice a person may have. Self-centered. And you're disconnecting, then what you're saying really is that I'm a godly person, but I happen to be obnoxious. Now then there's a real problem. It's one thing to acknowledge that you have a flaw, but it's another to sanctify it or even justify it. You have to say, no, that's not what's expected of me. I'm not following what is asked of me. No, don't say you're a religious, pious person and you just happen to have a flaw. It means that you're not living up to what is expected of you. That still doesn't mean that everything about you is a problem. Could be you're doing a lot of good things. This is, I believe, one of the big errors, if you wish, or distortions that exist today. That people think you can separate the two, when in truth you can't. You can't separate the two because they're all part of the same picture. Being a healthier person. There's an expression in the Talmud that says, cleanliness brings to holiness, to sanctity. Now, cleanliness can mean literally being clean. And if you're dirty, you can't really be holy. But it also means on a psychological and emotional level, that if you're unclean, meaning that you're unrefined, and you're insensitive, you can't really be holy. So ta'ara, which means purity, is not just physical purity that you're clean. It's also that you're clean emotionally, that you are cleansed, that you are working on yourself of being a more refined person. Refinement brings to sanctity. And if you don't have the refinement, it's very hard for sanctity to enter. Now, how do you explain that? Because sanctity is not just what you do, it's your attitude. In the classic work, the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman explains that sanctity is about humility. It's about bittul. It's something that is not consumed with itself. It's receiving, suspending the self in order to receive something greater than yourself. You're like a channel for something, for a reality that's deeper than you are, greater than you are. So the very idea that you're holding on to your identity and to your obnoxiousness or to your flaws does not allow Kedusha, holiness, to enter. Holiness needs a place to dwell. You need a container. You need a channel. The cleanliness, or the health, we'll call it the health. Being healthy is the proper container to being holy. What that means is that in our religious schools we should be teaching goes hand in hand. It's not just how committed you are to the details of a particular commandment. Is that you do it with kindness, with gentleness. So for every commitment you have to the technical elements of it, that commitment goes hand in hand with being a more sensitive person. And there's so many examples of this, where people in the name of religion do something that's so insensitive. Classic example they give of this very devout man, the head of the family, sitting at the Friday night Shabbat table. Beautifully set, his wife prepared a real feast for many different guests. And he's sitting like a king at the head of the table. Everything is so beautiful, but one thing is missing. There's a cup of wine ready. There's the challah, the bread that's prepared. But his wife forgot to put the cover on the challah. The custom is to cover the challah with a challah cover. And you could visibly see, the guest can see that he's upset. And he's showing it. Like this bitter look at dirty looks at his wife. Like, why did you not bring the challah thing? He begins to mutter, and you could tell that he embarrassed her in front of everyone. Now, why didn't he just get up and just go bring the cover without making a whole fanfare? Fine, we'll soon address that. And his wife finally brings the cover. He makes kiddush, a blessing on the wine. Then everybody goes to wash their hands. That's the custom. They wash their hands. They come to the table, uncovers the bread, the challah, and makes a blessing, cuts the challah. One of the guests, who seemed to be a secular person, didn't know much, that's what it appeared at least, turns to the host and says, I noticed that you were very upset that the challah was not covered. Why is it important to cover the challah? So the man says, what do you mean? Don't you know? Why? Because when you make the blessing on the wine, you don't want to embarrass the challah. You don't want to humiliate it. So you cover it symbolically. So the guest looks at him, playing dumb, and says, so explain this to me. So embarrassing your wife, that is not such a problem, but embarrassing the challah. No, it's not to embarrass the challah, he embarrassed his wife in public. She's a human being. That's the message. That's called real dissonance. That he's so committed to the challah being covered, he could have, as I said, go find the cover himself. That he forgot the most important thing. You're embarrassing your wife, that is allowed. That is actually a real, something forbidden. That's a real transgression in the Torah. Covering the challah is a custom, at best. And so many other examples where people get so stuck in their behavior. And this is also true outside of religion. You get so committed to your dogma, to your ritual, you forget there are people around you. You forget about sensitivity. Well, the message, and I hope this clears up this distortion. The message is true religion, true faith, true connection to God goes hand in hand, is synonymous with more refinement. The attempt to be more refined. Again, we're not perfect, but definitely not an inconsistency of this caliber, of this so glaring. So that's when religion hides our flaws. We hide behind the religion and we say, I'm a religious person. I don't have to work on myself. I'm already a godly person. I'm better than others. No, you're a human being. And part of your faith and your religion and connection to God is also looking at your flaws, not covering them up, not hiding behind them, not justifying them. I didn't even go into nightmare stories where people, most religious looking people, and you find out what kind of abuse, what kind of abusers they may be, how they've hurt others. And I'm talking about serious hurt, molestation, rape. I don't even want to go into it. And what do you say then? And what message does that leave? And how many people have suffered from that and have left the whole thing? They throw out the baby in the bathwater. So when somebody on a Shabbat, the holiest day, when you're supposed to be most refined, you behave in the most obnoxious way, what a message does it send? And what effect, what long-term wounds does it create inside of your children or others that are exposed to it? So whatever I've said till here, it's magnified and amplified. That's why it's so critical to nip in the bud. And that is unacceptable. No, there's absolutely no justification for it. I would even go on the limb and say, I'd rather a person not look religious. So at least you're not desecrating God and desecrating religion. Than be religious and behave in such an obnoxious, such an abusive, such a hurtful, destructive manner. I've seen the damage done from it. We still try to teach people, let's separate. That was that person. That's the person. That's not the religion. It's not the faith. It's not God. But parents represent something. And adults represent. The children who are impressionable and vulnerable don't always can distinguish. And they mix it all together. It's like a snowball effect. The person who loved you has also hurt you. So the religion with all its beauty, I've heard from people who said, I will never forgive my father or mother because they stole the religion from me. The beauty of it was stolen because it was so defiled and desecrated by their behavior. I didn't want to focus so much on the nightmare side, but obviously it has to be mentioned. So unequivocally we state here very clearly, faith, religion, God, in its purest form is all about refinement, being more sensitive, working on your flaws, definitely not hiding behind the religion. Where you and your own shortcomings become almost sanctified. Not sanctified, but the legitimate, because you are doing other things. It's fine, do good things, that's great. But understand that's not what's expected, that's not the standard. So then what do we do about it? How do we heal from it? Finally heal from it. The first thing is awareness. Awareness is half the cure. Awareness of a problem. That goes hand in hand with acknowledgement, with recognition. Like they say, the silence is worse than the rape. What does that mean? That ignoring it, denying it, minimizing it, or not acknowledging it, that causes the problem even more so. So just stating it. Yes, say, I thought I was a religious person, and I thought that I was not perfect, but I was beyond, and I justified. Acknowledge, apologize, and recognize you did not live up to what God wants. Not just because you didn't do the law mechanically correctly, because you didn't do it with the right sensitivity. That's always the first step toward healing. Now, those that can't acknowledge it, you have parents or adults that don't want to acknowledge it, or they minimize it, or they blame others. If you were a victim of theirs, and I don't like the word victim, a survivor of their hands, so you have to acknowledge it and recognize the problem is them, not the religion, not the faith. The problem is those individuals. If they're ready to be accountable, then maybe you can consider talking to them. But if not, move on. Don't be around toxic people. Yes, it can be toxic. Religion can be toxic. Not religion is toxic. The person is toxifying it. That's how you heal. You get out of the line of fire if you're in that situation. And you come to recognize that the person that has contaminated or polluted the experience is not a representative. Find people that are representatives. So far I've said awareness, acknowledgement, getting out of the line of fire, finding the true examples of what is a refined person, what is a true religious person. And I've seen that too. People who've experienced terrible things and then they met someone, they say, this is a man of God, a woman of God. And for those of us that witness it, we have to be there for others. Help them get through it, because it's not easy. Especially if it comes from close relatives, from family members. It's very hard, it's very confusing, because you want the love of your family. And very many people to say that for that love, silence. That's the price you have to pay. Complicity through silence. Well, that's not going to bring to healing. So find someone to speak to if you're in a situation like that. Above all, the point of all of this is the positive side. There is always hope, because there are good people, and we have a good system. Even if it's been misused or abused or misrepresented or distorted or desecrated or defiled and polluted and all the other words you can use, is there. And your soul, as we say every morning, your soul is pure. Nobody can truly defile the essence of your soul. They can defile the fuel lines, if you wish, the way you experience it, your consciousness of it, but not your actual soul. And that's the ultimate salvation, if you wish, redemption, is to connect to that part of your soul. That's why in the morning, every morning we say, thank you for returning my soul to me. And then we continue, the soul you've given me is pure. Remember, pure, healthy. The fact that it may have grown up in an unhealthy environment, but the flower within you is always healthy. And it's now time to access it, to reclaim it, and find people that will support that effort. So on one hand, yes, many have experienced very negative things that create a lot of confusion, a lot of distortion. But there's beauty in connecting to your divine soul, because it's ultimately That part of you that gives you the hope, the ability to reach places you could never have reached on your own. And that you don't want to write that off. You don't want to say, I'm surrendering that because it was abused, because it was polluted by abusive people. You want to redeem it, you want to free it, which is, of course, a tremendously powerful concept in mysticism. Freeing the sparks, redeeming the sparks, beginning with their own spark within you. The spark that is like a pilot flame that's always there, always intact. Always keep that in mind. No one can take that from you because no one gave it to you. May we be blessed not to have any of these negative experiences, and even if we do, to use them as a catalyst, a springboard, to find a deeper strength within us. Like the tea bag, you don't know how strong it is until it's put into hot water. But we prefer not having the hot water. And coming to discover the true God, the true healthy relationship with God, with faith, with religion, and finding the people that can help support your effort. Everyone be blessed. Access that deepest part within you through friends, through prayers, through study, through feeding and nourishing your soul on a daily basis. That's how you do it. That nurturing will allow the flowers, the song, the beauty, the music within you to emerge, to blossom, to flourish. This has been Simon Jacobson, meaningfullife.com. If this class has been meaningful to you, please share it with others. Please subscribe to our offerings, to our growing YouTube channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your comments. Be blessed and be well.
This program is brought to you by the Meaningful Life Center. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at meaningfullife.com/donate.